There is only a few that support the channel, the website and the research, and if you'd like to make a contribution towards this, what we do on this channel, the link's down there below. We're over at JPL's studio, and we're looking at the recent footage from the Cassini spacecraft that's visited the North Pole of Saturn. What's puzzling those people over there at JPL is this hexagon pattern that's formed around the North Pole, and they're not sure as to whether it is a hurricane or not. You know, I could take this a little bit further, right? First of all, they don't mention the magnetic North Pole, they just say the North Pole. So we know it's the rotational axis that they're looking over, and we can see this, you know, weird jet stream pattern, and it is very strange to get a hexagon pattern forming over the North Pole of the planet. I think there's more to it. And, you know, you might think, oh, maybe you shouldn't delve into these things, but I think it's relevant, even if it's just for the geometry relevance, if nothing else. I mean, we could be looking equally at a three-dimensional cube if we was to put the other 2 or 3 lines on that. That's exactly what we would be looking at, and the centre would be on the corner. The reason why I mention this is because I've seen this a lot on crop circles. I'm going to show you some of the crop circles in a minute, and I'll show you some more footage of this unique pattern that's formed over there. But the important point I want to make is that they don't mention anything at all about a magnetic North Pole, or whether they even know whether there's a magnetic North Pole in the centre. And I would put money on it that that is what's holding that jet stream in position, as is on Earth. But if we look over the top of our planet, and we might as well do that at the jet streams, so let's get that up. And what we'll see, first of all, is it looks nothing at all like Saturn's North Pole. And that's because our magnetosphere and magnetic poles have weakened, you know, around about 25% of what it should be, say, 40, 50 years ago. And the jet streams are not even in the positions they should be. There should be one at 30 degrees, which is your polar jet stream, and one at 60 degrees, which is your subtropical. And just looking over the northern hemisphere, or the North Pole, you can see that they're both intermingled, and I wouldn't have said either one was in the true positions that it should be. I think just before we have a look at some more Cassini photographs, you might as well have a look at the jet streams from the equatorial region as of today. So you can see what I'm saying, you know, that there isn't a nice, neat, or, you know, wavy as there used to be jet stream around 30 degrees, and there's neither the subtropical jet stream around 60 degrees, neither on the northern hemisphere of this planet or on the southern hemisphere of this planet. And just before we leave, we might as well have a look over the Antarctic region or the South Pole to see that that is the case. So what we'll do, we'll have a look at a few more images first of all, before we have a look at some of these crop circles. I know what you're thinking, but just bear with me. I think you'll find it, if nothing else, coincidental. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these images then of the North Pole on Saturn. Let's go through a few. What's interesting to me is that it does form this perfect hexagon pattern, and there does seem to be this little border pattern around the edge of it. And you know, what is it that puts up you know, the system in place to form such a pattern in the first place over a planet covering, you know, thousands of miles? It's very unusual. It's got to be one of the most unusual planets in our solar system, with its ring in any case, Saturn has. But then, you know, just to add even more to the mystery, you get this strange anomaly appearing over the northern hemisphere, you know, over the polar region. So let's have a look then at some of these crop circles that I've been talking about, because I think there is some significant similarities, and I'll point out a few other things as well of interest that I thought was worth mentioning about in this video at least. So let's do that. So let's have a look at some of the similarities in these crop circles with regards to the geometry or geometric shapes that have formed, or the shape that has formed on the polar region of Saturn. You know, I'm not saying that there's anything connected between the two. I'm just saying that it is unusually similar in nature, and the geometry seems to revolve around divisions of 144, and I know that for a fact. I've actually done some calculations with regards to these patterns. Now, I'm not saying that these are done by UFOs, but someone seems to feel that the geometry is of relevance because they go to a lot of work to put these geometric shapes into these fields, and some of them are pretty amazing. You know, we've heard the professional opinions of people that say that there's no way that these could have been done by humans, but you know, I'm not going to put that up for argument. I'll leave that for you to make up your own decisions on. But for some reason, there is a lot of crop circles that have that hexagon pattern, first of all, and you know, there is a connection between the number 144. You can work it out for yourself. The divisions of some of these geometric patterns are also divisions of 144, such as the number 36 times 4 and 72 times 2. You know, get back to the number 144. And I know some of you guys out there that are interested in some of the stuff that we've done with regards to the Bible and Bible numbers that reoccur a lot, such as the 144 cubits, the 144,000 people, made up of the 12 tribes, etc., etc. You know, it's a sort of like a back burner project for me, because I really believe that whoever was writing that book certainly had knowledge of the flare of life pattern, and the geometry within that pattern is again similar to these crop circles and similar to that polar region on the Saturn's North Pole. Now, I'm not saying, you know, that there are intelligent life forms out there that are responsible for putting these patterns down on the ground on Earth as a sort of warning sign for us. Maybe, you know, it's just a coincidence that we are going through a magnetic reversal, and you know, that pattern on the North Pole region of Saturn is just nothing but a coincidence. But you know, I'm just sharing this with you. I think it's interesting, and I think whoever's done these patterns seriously went to a lot of work to do that, or it could quite easily be, you know, something else that put them down. And I have an open mind to this simply because of what I've witnessed personally with my own eyes. So, you know, I'm just putting it out there. I did mention to you guys the fact that you could look at that pattern as a hexagon or as a three-dimensional cube. Now, this pattern here definitely resembles that, what I was talking about the numbers in the 144. First of all, there are around that cube, right, 144 triangles. You can see that it's made up of 4 sets. The first 2 sets make up 72. The second 2 sets make up, you know, the 144. Or each ring consists of 36 triangles. And you know, I found this very same pattern. A lot of people have overlooked it on an old temple in Osiris in Egypt, and you know, you can see that this flower of life is on one of the, well, it's on a few of the walls, but you can also, if you look very closely, see that it's got a border pattern made up of these triangles, and there is 144 of them. Now, in the centre of this crop circle, you've got lots of cubes, and the corner one, if you're looking at it as a three-dimensional one where the star is in the middle, you can see the corner one has been removed and you are able to see the star in the center. So, if we go back, if you have a look at that Cassini photographs, you'll see that there is, a three-dimensional cube, and in the center is that circle. I'm just saying that this is a coincidence, especially with the research that goes on this channel, because we're talking about planetary mechanics, and we're also talking about a particular region of that planet, which is the polar regions, because of, in my view, and has been for a long time now, a lot of things that make a planet livable depend on what's over those polar regions, and more so the magnetic North Pole. Now, they're saying over the polar region that they're unsure why the jet stream, or that hurricane pattern, which has formed that hexagon, they're not sure why it is over that region and what's caused it. They've not even mentioned at all that that could be due to a strong magnetic field of one of its dipoles, or polar one of the magnetic poles of that planet. They've not even mentioned it. I just find it really strange that they would emit something that they know occurs on this planet and not even mention it at all. It's just bizarre. But we've talked about a few things in this video. We've talked about the Bible numbers, or the Bible code numbers. There is, believe me, there is a series of numbers that repeat themselves in the Bible. Like, we know 1212s make up 144, and there is 12,000 of these tribal members that make up the 144,000 during the times of tribulations. Right? We know that this thing that's going to be descending, which is described as in the Bible as the bride, right, will have a wall 144 cubits in length. What I'm saying to you is, for some reason, these numbers were put into this book at the specific points at which they was put in the book, I believe, for a reference for a later point in time. I think that they knew that at some point in time, the people that was, around in that time would figure out what the relevance of that was. Maybe, what I'm not saying here, guys, is, it's a serious topic. First of all, the pole shift, the news is, we're talking about a real anomaly that's taking place during our point in time. It hasn't happened for the last 780,000 years. It's a rare event, and it's an unusual rare event in the fact that it's taken another 500,000 years to occur this time round. People are talking right now about the increase in cancer rates. Some people are just putting it off as to, to say, oh, there's more people on this planet now than there ever has been. That's true. But, with a weakened magnetosphere, it'll also mean that there'll be more inbound cosmic rays, which are, if you like, carcinogenic, cancer-causing. So, there is talk now slowly creeping out about the significances of a weakened magnetosphere. It's going to get worse because the magnetosphere is just decaying as time goes on. I know it isn't going to go, flash, overnight. We're not going to lose the magnetosphere completely. We are going to get to a point where there is going to be no protection during that magnetic reversal. From the research that we've conducted on this channel, to the best of my abilities, with what I've had at hand, and as you guys know, I always make the very most of what I've got, or I try and do my best with what I've got. We know that when it gets into them weak field lines, things will increase in pace and move a lot quicker. And when they do, we are going to go through a magnetic reversal. And that will mean during that point in time where there is, no defined north or south pole, there will be no magnetosphere either. There will be no protection at all for people on the surface, as well as all the biological life forms or biodiversities that's on the surface as well. And your government have prepared you for this. In what way exactly? You know, they've told us, they've told people, and I'm not blaming the actual people that work there, I'm blaming the management in some of these organisations. They have told people that this is 1,000 years off, and it's not. It's nowhere near it. It's a lot shorter than that. It's not 1,000 years off like they're saying. It's clearly not, and we're seeing signs now of that pole preparing almost to go into them wheat field lines. We know that for a fact because now the magnetic north pole is deviated off that vector. Well, this is a sign that something's changed, guys. We've seen this happen 3 times already, where it has increased speed, covered more distance over that time, short periods of time. We've seen it go up a gear like 3 times. Now we've seen it deviate off its vector that it was heading for the last 100 years. We're getting closer to an event happening on this planet. I really believe that. Whether these crop circles are to do with that in some way, I cannot 100% say. All I can say is that there is a lot of things that if you're open-minded enough, you might think that, yeah, we could be being told here by something or somebody, you know, that there is a significant factor with regards to, you know, the poles on other planets in this solar system. And, you know, it has a reference on a lot of other things. But for some reason, you know, they are always showing, the majority of the time, the same geometry. Why is that? Why do they always use the same geometry is what I'm saying. I dare say some people will think that's an Illuminati one. But, you know, just putting it out there, I just thought, you know, I don't know what that's got to do with these. Maybe she thought it'd be a good idea to have a crop circle on her back, I don't know. But, you know, there is plenty of evidence to support, you know, a very likelihood that these mean more than just, you know, pretty patterns in the ground, I think. And I just thought I'd share that with you guys. So I'm going to leave it here. I'll leave it with you guys to ponder. I just thought it was worth mentioning the Cassini spacecraft going over the North Pole of, you know, Saturn, and that unusual pattern that's formed over there. And it just brought my mind back to this, some of this research that I did with regards to these crop circles. And, you know, I just thought I'd mention some of the mathematical numbers, if you like, or the, you know, the formula of what's in the Bible. And, you know, I'll leave it with you to think about it. But they're interesting in any case, and I think they're nice. Whoever's done, you know, whatever has been responsible for putting them there on these fields. Okay, some might say, well, they're, you know, they're reckless. It's actual criminal, what they've done, but, you know, I think it's nice, in some way. So guys, I'm going to leave it with you to think about that. And, you know, I'll say what I usually do. You know, you take care. And as always, before I do leave, there's a link down there if you want to contribute towards the channel. It's not mandatory. It just helps things, you know, keep going on this channel and keep us doing what we're doing. And, you know, there's always a few people. And, you know, I do try my best on every video. At the beginning, the first thing is to thank them people for supporting the channel and the work that we do here. And I hope you find it, if nothing else, just better than watching some of the garbage on the mainstream media and the TV today. You know, it's just, I hope you find it interesting, if nothing else. So I'll leave it there. So link down there, guys. And as always, you take care. Bye for now. By the period of time in which we're in during this magnetic reversal, and appreciate it for what it is. One of the rarest, most unusual anomalies in humanity, yet has failed to capture, you know, mainstream media's attention on a more regular basis than what it has. Then I think this video alone you're going to find very rewarding. What's happened is, and the reason why this is an alert update, is because we've stumbled on some information today, which is very rare. And the reason why I say it's very rare is because usually you only get this information when somebody visits the actual North Pole, and it's came from an unlikely source. You wouldn't believe it, guys, but we'll get to that later in the video. So what we're looking at is that green dot on the map. The map is provided by the National Centres for the Environmental Information, and of course, if you know who NOAA are, you'll know that they're the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Organisation. So they're providing the map and all the relevant information on the map. So if you look at the scale at the bottom, you can see the time period, which is going to become relevant in a minute, and you can also see the longitude and latitude position to where that is. If I try and get it into the centre there, you can see at that left hand screen on the position that it's 86 degrees north by 159 degrees west. That is important, guys, because that is where NOAA are stating that in 2015, if you look at the date at the bottom of that chart, where the North Pole is right now. Now, I can pull up the historical tracks which just rebut what I've been talking about in previous videos. Let's do that right now. Let's get up the historical previous tracking of the magnetic North Pole. As you can see, for quite some period of time now, since the 1900s, it's been tracking almost on a perfect vector easterly towards Siberia. But what you'll notice is that if we're at 2015, why have NOAA included the next few dots? And not only that, why did NOAA include the dots but also show the magnetic North Pole slowing down when we know that is not the nature of the magnetic North Pole at the moment? It has been increasing in speed exponentially, and so those dots should be getting further and further away. Now, I've got the GPS coordinates of each pin that you see there, and I've plotted them into Google Earth, and I've showed you many times. But what I want to show you something in this video is something very bizarre and unexpected, and came about unexpectedly, really, today, this morning, and I could not believe my luck, because not only has somebody actually gone onto the North Pole, but they went almost to the exact, well, as good as you could get, because anyone that tries to track the North Pole and position it perfectly 90 degrees should know it's not an easy job. So even plotting these coordinates onto Google Earth is very finicky, because as soon as you go over 90 degrees, then the heading changes. In other words, if you're looking at the compass, it goes up straight away upside down, and so it doesn't matter whether you go diagonal one way or the other, or left, right, up and down. It's very difficult when you're trying to get a highly accurate position for the North Pole. So, what's my beef then? What's so important about this video? Well, it turns out from the position that these people have tracked it to, it's off course from the line that you're seeing. And first of all, what I want to show you, right, is that NOAA have been forecasting only where the magnetic North Pole is, and not actually taking measurements, and that's going to become apparent very later on in this video. Now, you would think an organisation funded by taxpayers, so you know how they treat taxpayers' money with very little consideration and care, you would think that they would actually not provide a forecast, but actually, if somebody else can go out to the North Pole in the manner in which the results have come to me, then why couldn't they have done that? Why haven't they updated the historical magnetic poles, as I'm about to later on in this video? So they're forecasting. The reason why I know they're forecasting, because I can just go up the dates. If you just pay attention to the 2015, you'll see that as I go up the dates, once it uploads, the new position of the North Pole comes in. Now, how can they have 2016's position if they're not forecasting? How can they have 2017, 2018, 2019, up to 2020? It's simply because they're forecasting. Now, how can they forecast that it's first of all going to slow down? And here's the big thing, right? According to the latest information that I've been able to obtain, and that was from somebody that actually has gone out to the ice last year in June 2014, it's no longer tracking in an easterly vector. And the reason why I think that is because the magnetosphere is actually weakening now. And, you know, that pole can be wandering pretty much anywhere. And, you know, it'll be interesting now, because this does really throw a spanner into the works, because, you know, we was hoping that just one magnetometer would be enough to keep a track on this, because we sort of like knew in which direction it was tracking easterly. So one magnetometer on a heading would have told us that. But no, we did anticipate setting up another magnetometer in Virginia, which was around 4,500 miles away. I'm 4,500 miles away from the actual magnetic pole, so we'd get like two lines intercrossing, and where they intercross would give us a good position of where the magnetic pole was. That's still going to be the case, and you know, that's you know, we're in progress of that right now. I'm just waiting for the voltage boost regulator to come in, so that, you know, I can complete the you know, the magnetometer that I'm building right now to do that. So once we get the first one built, then it's a matter of knocking up the second one, getting that shipped over to the United States. And we're going to need it now, because I'm going to show you in the next part of this video that the pole is tracking south, and not by a small amount either, guys. I think you're going to be shocked, and I think the reason why that is, as I say, is because you know, the magnetosphere is weakening now to a point where things are starting to you know, become unpredictable. Now, it's important that I mention this, that those white boxes now that I've just included, right, are observed pole locations, which means people have actually gone out there and observed from that position. Now, I believe that I know that one person that used to do it was Larry Newt from the Canadian Geological Survey, and he was no longer able to do that because the migrating pole was going that far that his twin-engine Otter aircraft that he used to land on the ice with, as it's run out of range. Basically, it can no longer fly there and back, even with, you know, I suppose extra cans of fuel to get him out there. So it became unviable for people to get out there on the ice. But as you can see, those little yellow square boxes that I've put up there are the last known locations of where people actually have. We're going to put another one on there, and we're going to put one on from 2014, in the middle of the year, from June 2014. Now, in the you know, the where, I don't know the technical term. I do know the technical term, but I can't think of it at the moment. But we're going to have a look at the captain's GPS as he gets closer to the North Pole. I'm going to show you the readings for that from the bridge. That's the word I was looking for. So we're going to see not just the 90 degrees north of the new position, we're also going to see that it's date time stamped, and that's, you know, massively important to getting and obtaining accurate information. So we can say that we have, you know, a legitimate positioning of the North Pole where somebody has actually observed it from that location. And, you know, the last time this happened was in 2004. So, you know, without further ado, guys, let's get into how I obtained this information. First of all, it was a YouTube video, and it was a Russian nuclear icebreaker ship that now, believe it or not, guys, if you want to, you can book, you know, or reserve a place on this boat and go to the North Pole yourself. So, having found now this icebreaker ship that goes out to the North Pole regularly with passengers on board that want to go to the top of the Earth, or 90 degrees, you know, we're just going to tag onto the channel. and follow it year after year, and we're going to get not just forecasted positioning, but we're going to get at least, at the least, ground observations of where the magnetic North Pole is. Now I'm going to show you, first of all, in the next video, the ship that goes out there, and then secondly, I'm going to show you where I've plotted these positions on Google Earth, so that we can see the variation in which it's deviated from that present course that it's been following, at least up till 2007, or maybe shortly after that. Let's get on with that so that we can do this thing, guys. So here we are, guys. This is the Victory. It's a unique Russian vessel. It's been in service, I believe, 50 years, and it's a nuclear powered icebreaker, and we're looking at the GPS on board the ship. As you can see, 90 degrees north and 17 degrees east, and the date at which it was making this voyage was on the 25th of June 2014. Even there, 1 minute past 6. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable where you find this information, and NOAA must have been aware, surely, that somebody had been going over the North Pole, and if not, it's a shame that they've not updated the data. Even recently, I'd been speaking to someone at the British Geological Survey, and they told me the last time that somebody had been actually there to make a recorded position on the ice was around 2007. So even it just seems that us in the West have been totally oblivious to this now passenger ship. You can literally, I'll put a link down there so that you can see the link in which you can go onto and book a trip to the North Pole, the exact North Pole. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? It's an unbelievable source of information, but it's just by luck that it's came. I mean, you'd never think that a passenger ship would be going over the North Pole. But anyhow, let's have a look at the ship that actually does do it, and you'll see them here. I'll just press play. So you can rent this helicopter as well. By the way, I'm not trying to sell tickets to this. I mean, if I could afford to, I can imagine this isn't going to be a cheap trip. But I would definitely be one that would be interested in going on that for just the purpose of finding out where the magnetic North Pole was every year, so we can keep a log on it, because we know how important it is. So this ship goes out there. It's been out there a few times now that I've managed to watch where it's gone out to the North Pole. The captain tries to get it on the spot of where the magnetic North Pole is, or 90 degrees, as you've seen on his GPS. And I don't know how long they've been doing that. I suppose this vessel had a commercial purpose at some point, breaking the ice for other ships to come follow through. But it's just great that we've been able to obtain the information, because now we've got a location for the magnetic North Pole, and it's not forecasted for at least 2014. So let's put this into perspective then for you guys that are interested in where the magnetic North Pole is, because if you've been following the videos, you know how important this is. Right, where that P is, right, is the coordinates that the Victor found the North Pole to be at. And as you can see, I've put the date in, the 25th of 6th, 2014. Right, two things stand out to me here. First of all, it's no longer tracking in a nice vector easterly towards Siberia anymore. It's somehow deviated more further south, and it's done that by, if I can just bring in the measuring tool, I'll show you exactly what we're getting here. So if we just measure from the the vector that it was tracking in, if we put that somewhere in between these yellow pins that were provided by the GPS coordinates of NOAA, we'll see that it's not a small deviation. As you can see, it's 288 miles deviated off course further south. And the second thing is, if we clear that and measure it from the last time someone actually went to the ice, let's just clear it, okay, which was 2007, to the new position, we can see that it's done around 417 miles in 7 years. So 417 divided by 7 equals 59.57 miles a year, and that's 20 miles an hour, or sorry, 20 miles a year faster than what NOAA and the British Geological Survey have put the North Pole migrating at. And that's a lot, guys. So it gives us an idea as to how to forecast from that point on further. So we could add from that position now in 2015, if things haven't deteriorated anymore with the position of the North Pole, at least another 60 miles onto that. And you can see that from that position it leaves us around 500 miles or less, actually. Let's see if I can get a better one than that. Around 429 miles to that all-important 40 degrees, and we know what happens at 40 degrees. As I said earlier on in the video, I don't think it even needs to track in a single vector now easterly. I just think it's important that we do keep track of where it is as best we can. Now, as soon as the magnetometer station's up and running in the UK, we'll have a vector as to where the North Pole is with regards to 90 degrees, and as soon as we get the one up in Virginia up and running, we can have some way of crisscrossing those two headings, and it will almost give us a perfect triangulation of where the magnetic North Pole is, to within a small degree of accuracy. It's going to be very accurate. I have said that the magnetometers that we're using, even though they are good magnetometers, they can have an uncertainty to 1 degree, and we're using 3 in each station. So there'll be 3 in the UK, 3 in Virginia, and we're also going to be tracking the one in New Zealand as well. The South Pole, that'll be. So guys, that's where we are. This is important stuff. When you consider what is taking place now, you guys know that I predicted that this magnetic pole wasn't there in the region of the Arctic region for no reason. We wouldn't have polar jet streams, I believe, if it weren't for where the magnetic pole resides right now, somewhere over the Arctic region, but it's tracking south and easterly right now, or southeasterly, and that means I expect to see the polar jet streams, if there's a strong pole, be in formation, but as we know, they're weakening now. I've got something to show you here, guys, and I think you're going to be quite alarmed at what I've got to show you. So I'll just draw up the other map, so at least you know where it is, guys. If you check the GPS coordinates down here at the bottom of the screen before I leave this place, you'll see that it's, like I said, 89.5 is actually where the pin is, and you can just see how much things move on the westerly and easterly coordinates. But trust me, I got it down as best as I could in that vicinity to 17 degrees east and 89.5 degrees north, which is virtually there. If you don't trust me, go onto Google Earth and see how hard it is to put the pin on 90 degrees and 17 degrees east, and you'll see for yourselves it's in that vicinity of where I've marked the P. So let's go and have a look at the other map then, the other chart, because I've got something important to show you as well with that, and that's with regards to the weakening of the magnetosphere and the effects it's having on the polar jet streams right now. So here we are on the global weather modelling system, and most of it is real time. What I want to show you is jet streams and what's happening. So what you're looking at is your subtropical and polar jet streams, and as you can see, guys, they're indistinguishable. You can't tell them apart from each other, and you know, that to me is highly shocking. We've got hot and cool air mixing sporadically across the globe right now, and I think it's to do with the weakening magnetosphere. I was on a website the other day where scientists were, you know, not screaming about it, but they're saying that in the last 6 months, you know, the magnetosphere had noticeably dropped again. It's very difficult to get information from these organisations. I mean, we wouldn't have had it not been for that, you know, Russian passenger boat now, which is a nuclear icebreaker going over the North Pole. We wouldn't have got the data of where the North Pole is accurately as what they did on the spot if they hadn't have gone across the North Pole themselves in 2014. If we look at the SS TA, sea surface temperature anomaly, or, you know, as you may know it to be the El Niño, I want to point out a couple of areas first. We're going to go back on the wind chart and have a look what's happening over this region here, but it is a region which is increasing in sea surface temperature. And also a look at this, because these are both going to be affected by the intermingling of the polar and tropical jet streams, you know, that warm and cold air mixing. And you can see from yourselves, guys, this is intensifying. If this information is being put out there correctly from NOAA, then you can see yourselves it's intensifying, and we are looking, as other scientists have already stated, to a severe El Niño. And when comparing the worst one we've ever recorded in '97, it looks like it's going to be worse than that, because that was recorded in November time, and we're not in November yet, we're rapidly approaching it. So, you know, I'm just giving you a heads up. This is going to get worse, guys, and I think we all need to pay attention to it. We've got now a southerly deviating magnetic pole at this moment in time. Just look at the yellow regions. These are hotter, by the way, than the red regions. Don't ask me why they did it on that scale. I mean, it just seems more logic to put it in red than it is in yellow, but they did it that way anyway. If you look at the scale, you'll see, you know, yellow's hotter than red, so, you know. If we just go back to the air and wind at surface, and then go back, we're going to start seeing more of these cyclic movements in these regions of where, you know, the sea surface temperature is recorded as being hotter. So just pay attention to these cyclic events in the future. And the region in this place here is where I was telling you another cyclical event could fall into, you know, producing a hurricane at some point if it hasn't already. So you know, guys, you know, if they're talking about climate chaos, well, you know, you're seeing it firsthand, and I can't think why people would not want to pass on the information as to where the magnetic North Pole is, but perhaps they might be thinking, well, you know, there might be a few people out there that put two and two together, like I have, and understand, you know, what implications this could have. Bear this in mind, guys. You know, I'm going to end the video here, but bear this in mind. This hasn't happened for 780,000 years. So, just bear that in mind. No human historical records of the last time we went through a full magnetic reversal. And you've seen the videos in which I've done on Mars And what you've got to bear in mind is, on average, this used to go through a reversal every 250,000 years. And it's been 780,000 years since the last one. So something happened there. I'll just put it out there. I'll just what I think. Why not? Is this the end? Is this the last magnetic reversal this Earth goes through? And even if it's not, and scientists cannot deny this, it's showing signs that during this magnetic reversal, when the magnetosphere does collapse, that it will definitely take longer for it to come back up if the magnetic poles do reconfigure at some other point on this planet. Now, when they do, you can expect the Arctic regions to be over those new positions. And not only that, I've said also in a video before, many times in other videos, that the rotational axis is not on the same position as where the Arctic region is and the magnetic North Pole. They're not. They are definitely connected through some planetary mechanics that, I'm trying to work out what's going on myself. But, I don't think that they're all there by coincidence, guys. We could be in for some real unprecedented events during this time. And as a scientist, I've been slated for saying this, but for me, this is an exciting time. There's lots of stuff to study, but at the same time, I can understand the anxiousness of some people watching these videos, thinking, this is really for one happening, and it's really serious. And I just hope that, you guys that feel that anxiety, take on board the fact that, you really do need to start putting up some provisions for yourself just in case the worst happens. That can come in many forms. Nature has got an unprecedented power. It can throw tidal waves, it can cause earthquakes, it can cause you to be irradiated by inbound solar radiation without the protection of the magnetosphere. So all these things is something you need to think about, guys. We may be only just now coming to the grips of the full reality of what we are facing, but if now we understand, it gives us time to prepare. And there's nothing wrong with that insurance policy of having a bug out bag or a bit of extra food, or some provisions put up for you and your family. At the end of the day, if you're thinking your governments are coming to your rescue, then look no further than what happened in Katrina during those floods. And need I say any more? That will set precedents for how governments will react during times of national emergency with regard to these incidences caused by these new anomalies. Guys, there's a link down there. I mean, some people won't appreciate the length of time that it takes to put this in even the order in which I do, and I've got to admit, it's not probably the most concise manner, and some of these videos do go along for a bit of time. But nevertheless, the information that's collected takes time. We don't just talk about things anymore on this channel. We're actually building scientific equipment to monitor these things, and we're doing that in the hope that we might be able to give you guys out there a little bit of a heads up. So, it's important. It affects you. If you can afford to make a donation, the link's there, guys. And, I'm just sorry that I have to keep mentioning it. It's a real shame that there's only a few that support this channel financially the way they do, and most of these people make more than one contribution. So I can only say kudos to those guys. They can pat themselves on the back. You're doing it not just for yourselves, but for others as well. And I know that as well. That's why I do put the time in and feel that this is worthwhile. I really do hope you appreciate the fact of why I put an alert on this video, guys. I think it was warranted. It's took an unprecedented detour, to say the least. It's no longer trekking in the vector of just easterly we're now getting a southeasterly moving magnetic north pole, and that's very important. So with that, guys, I'm going to say what I usually do. You take care, try not to worry, but prepare a little bit at least, and don't forget to contribute. You're not just helping keeping the information coming for yourselves, you're actually keeping it going for other people as well. Genuine people that can't afford to chip in on a regular basis. So with that, guys, all the best, and what I usually do. Bye for now.
Really know where to start with videos like this, especially when I've got the organic hand cam out. I just want to run something by some of you. Right, okay, they reckon that the Egyptians were just slave people that built this monument. Yeah, I can't accept that by any means. I think they knew something about nature and this universe that we are struggling to grasp, and even why they built these structures so big to last the test of the time. You're going to see where I'm coming from in a minute, but most of us know now that they built them in the star constellation of Orion. If I just show you that the first two pyramids, the Great Pyramid and the second one, are perfectly in line, and then the third one is just slightly offline. There's the centre of it. And if we look at the star constellation of Orion, we can see that replication there, the two that are perfectly in line and the one slightly offset. I'm doing my best with the camera, so you just have to bear with me. So, I come across, and I've mentioned it before in videos, the winter triangle, and I've got to come straight up clear with you here, guys. Why I'm doing this video is because there's a guy called Richard Feynman who I probably forgot about while studying natural sciences, and it was recently brought to my attention that when he was, I think he won the Nobel Prize for an equation that is to do with the propagation of a photon. Now, for people that don't know what a photon is, it's a single molecule of light. Yeah, the sun emits millions of photons. We see through the ability to compute in our brains photons that we're looking at pictures and so forth. Anyhow, but you wouldn't expect the information which I'm about to show you to turn up in the design of the pyramid, let alone any other thing that I'm about to show you. Probably you would never have had it brought to your attention about the pyramid. So we can see the star constellation Orion, and we know that the pyramids in Cairo were built in that formation, with the slightly one being offset. But if we just cast our eyes slightly to the left of the constellation, and if you're in the UK, by the way, you can see Orion's belt and the constellation Orion in the easterly sky if it's clear right now. And you can also see Betelgeuse, Procyon and Sirius as well, those stars that make up the winter triangle. And I don't think it was any coincidence that the pyramid, first of all, was built in the Orion constellation, and that it took on the shape of a triangle when you looked at it, or a pyramidal shape. So if we look into what possibly they was trying to draw our attention to, and I do believe that that was what they was trying to do, for many reasons, which I'll go into a few of them in this video. If we look at the interior, first of all, of the pyramid, we can see that the Queen's Chamber runs pretty much central, in centre line with the pyramid, and we can see that the King's Chamber is slightly offset. So what I did on the star chart is, as you can see, I drew the areas at which the Queen's chamber was, dead centre of the pyramid, and the King's Chamber slightly offset. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see those little dotted lines there, because what we're witnessing here is that these King and Queen's Chamber track the exact position of the galactic equator, the centre of the equator, or the spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy. And I thought that that cannot be of a coincidence. Now, getting back to the propagation of a photon, being 4%. If you work out what 4% is, you're going to either come to, I think you can either work it out at 4%, or you can work it out at 14.4%, or there's that magical number that I always talk about, 144. Now, coincidentally, or maybe not, if we look at the angle of the pyramid in which it was built, there, we'll see that the angle of incline is 51.51 degrees, and if we come down here, you can just see it there, the floor width of the pyramid is 745 feet without the casting stones that was added on there. So let's just put that into the calculator. So we'll start with the width of the pyramid, 745 divided by 51.51 degrees, and we see 14.4, and that's the propagation of a photon. If you look up Feynman's work, you'll come across the video and you'll see that he talks about 4% a lot. He also will show you in his videos that where on a sine wave in one of his videos where exactly that 4% is and it should be taken from, and it's dead centre of a sine wave, and which is what we're looking at when we're looking at the galactic equator. It looks like a big sine wave. The other thing is, you probably think, oh, that could be a coincidence that we've divided the angle of incline by the the width of the pyramid, and we've got 14.4 degrees, or well, let me just show you that if we was talking about a circle on this, 360 take away 4%, right, if I press the equals, you get 14.4%. It's interesting that we orbit the sun, and therefore if we just use the 360 and take away the 4%, which is the propagation of a photon, we get that answer, 14.4%. And you might think, well, there is another coincidence, but this is one thing that has had me puzzled today. If we get a ruler and just measure that line as best we can, and follow that line to the declination scale, you can see it's not quite 15 positive declination on the side of this star chart. And that is the winter triangle that we're measuring. I'll try and get it as accurate as I can. It's around about just under 15. Now I'm just thinking, for argument's sake, would we agree that that was 14.4? Guys, I don't believe that this pyramid was just built for any other reason than to give us information that was important about a time perhaps which we would come to understand it a bit better. First of all, I've been messing around with a few things. I wanted to know what 4% of 360 actually looked like, and you can see there that there is more than one proportion of 4%, or what would be 14.4% of 360 degrees. And you can see that the three there that I've put down, there's a reason why I did this. First one is that I measured the angle of from the centre to the edge of the 4%, 4%. Why did I use that? The reason why I used that is because if we look at where the King's Chamber is from the centre,
I think just before we have a look at some more Cassini photographs, you might as well have a look at the jet streams from the equatorial region as of today. So you can see where I'm saying, that there isn't a nice, neat or, wavy as there used to be jet stream around 30 degrees, and there's neither the subtropical jet stream around 60 degrees, neither on the northern hemisphere of this planet or on the southern hemisphere of this planet. And just before we leave, we might as well have a look over the Antarctic region or the South Pole to see that that is the case. So what we'll do, we'll have a look at a few more images first of all, before we have a look at some of these crop circles. I know what you're thinking, but just bear with me. I think you'll find it, if nothing else, coincidental. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these images then of the North Pole on Saturn. Let's go through a few. What's interesting to me is that it does form this perfect hexagon pattern, and there does seem to be this little border pattern around the edge of it. And what is it that puts up the system in place to form such a pattern in the first place over a planet? There is only a few that support the channel, the website and the research, and if you'd like to make a contribution towards this, what we do on this channel, the link's down there below. We're over at JPL's studio, and we're looking at the recent footage from the Cassini spacecraft that's visited the North Pole of Saturn. What's puzzling those people over there at JPL is this hexagon pattern that's formed around the North Pole, and they're not sure as to whether it is a hurricane or not. I could take this a little bit further, right? First of all, they don't mention the magnetic North Pole, they just say the North Pole. So we know it's the rotational axis that they're looking over, and we can see this, weird jet stream pattern, and it is very strange to get a hexagon pattern forming over the North Pole of the planet. I think there's more to it, and you might think, oh, maybe you shouldn't delve into these things, but I think it's relevant, even if it's just for the geometry relevance, if nothing else. I mean, we could be looking equally at a three-dimensional cube if we was to put the other two or three lines on that. That's exactly what we would be looking at, and the center would be on the corner. The reason why I mention this is because I've seen this a lot on crop circles. I'm going to show you some of the crop circles in a minute, and I'll show you some more footage of this unique pattern that's formed over there. But the important point I want to make is that they don't mention anything at all about a magnetic North Pole, or whether they even know whether there's a magnetic North Pole in the center. And I would put money on it that that is what's holding that jet stream in position, as is on Earth. But if we look over the top of our planet, and we might as well do that at the jet streams, let's get that up. And what we'll see, first of all, is it looks nothing at all like Saturn's North Pole. And that's because our magnetosphere and magnetic poles have weakened, around about 25% of what it should be, say, 40, 50 years ago. And the jet streams are not even in the positions they should be. There should be one at 30 degrees, which is your polar jet stream, and one at 60 degrees, which is your subtropical. And just looking over the northern hemisphere, or the North Pole, you can see that they're both intermingled, and I wouldn't have said either one was in the true positions that it should be. Covering, thousands of miles. It's very unusual. It's got to be one of the most unusual planets in our solar system, with its ring in any case, Saturn has. But then, just to add even more to the mystery, you get this strange anomaly appearing over the northern hemisphere, over the polar region. So let's have a look then at some of these crop circles that I've been talking about, because I think there is some significant similarities, and I'll point out a few other things as well of interest that I thought was worth mentioning about in this video at least. So let's do that. So let's have a look at some of the similarities in these crop circles with regards to the geometry or geometric shapes that have formed, or the shape that has formed on the polar region of Saturn. You know, I'm not saying that there's anything connected between the two. I'm just saying that it is unusually similar in nature, and the geometry seems to revolve around divisions of 144, and I know that for a fact. I've actually done some calculations with regards to these patterns. Now, I'm not saying that these are done by UFOs, but someone seems to feel that the geometry is of relevance because they go to a lot of work to put these geometric shapes into these fields, and some of them are pretty amazing. You know, we've heard the professional opinions of people that say that there's no way that these could have been done by humans, but you know, I'm not going to put that up for argument. I'll leave that for you to make up your own decisions on. But for some reason, there is a lot of crop circles that have that hexagon pattern first of all, and you know, there is a connection between the number 144. You can work it out for yourself. The divisions of some of these geometric patterns are also divisions of 144, such as the number 36 times 4 and 72 times 2. You know, get back to the number 144. And I know some of you guys out there that are interested in some of the stuff that we've done with regards to the Bible and Bible numbers that reoccur a lot, such as the 144 cubits, the 144,000 people, made up of the 12 tribes, etc., etc. You know, it's a sort of like a back burner project for me, because I really believe that whoever was writing